Hi everyone, this is Akira, your host for this class, and we are again broadcasting from live from Yamato headquarters in Kagawa, Japan. And so here we have Megumi. She's going to do most of the noodle making work, the tough part. And I'm going to be talking about in the lecture part. Today, we decided to do a class of cold noodle dishes. Um, but before we start talking about cold noodle dishes, let me explain let me introduce bit about what we do our Yamato manufacturing. And so for some of you who don't know much about us, we are 45-year-old manufacturer of noodle making machines. These noodle making machines are designed to do basically Japanese noodles, so udon, ramen, and soba noodles, and then of course pasta, and then types of Japanese noodles, and then some of the Chinese style noodles as well. And we also been running the noodle schools for almost 20 years, and on ramen, udon, and soba noodles. And we have a school in Kagawa, here in Kagawa, and well, in Tokyo and Singapore as well. We conduct a school almost every month. And so later, I want to show you guys how our school looks in the kitchen, and where we have some of our instructors standing by to share their expertise. So, okay, and then our noodle making machines are now used in 61 countries, and we are going to be seeing more and more countries using our machines. And we also have partners in different countries, different regions. And so if you guys are interested in our noodle making machines, feel free to contact us for any kind of information that you need. And so you're basically a group of noodle making experts who help our customers develop unique noodle products. And basically we help our customers in a lot of ways to succeed in their business. So we do a lot of stuff in different fields, different aspects of noodle business. And so if you're interested in doing something with noodles, please feel free to contact us. The cold noodles is something that you cannot avoid, right, when the summer comes. So we're talking about first, what's good about cold noodles, right? And second, I want to talk about noodles that are suitable for cold noodles dishes. And because today we're doing udon for the first time, udon cold noodles. So I want to talk about the differences between ramen and udon noodles. And then you're gonna make both udon noodles and ramen noodles from scratch. And today I'd like to show you noodles that are made on udon machine and noodles that are made on ramen machine. And after that, we're going to move to our kitchen, where our instructor is standing by to show you the few suggestions that he has on cold noodles dishes, and followed by FAQ sessions. And for those of you who have some questions about what we're talking about, or whatever you have, whatever question you have, just please feel free to send them in the comments, okay? And so, oops. Okay, so what's good about cold noodles, right? So we believe that cold noodles dishes are suitable for takeout and delivery for certain reasons. The biggest reason is that cold noodles is, well, that noodle texture, right? They stay longer. Cold noodles, you have to cook them and then you have to chill them. It's when they're chilled, they last longer. When they get hardened, it lasts longer for a while. So for that reason, we think that cold noodles are good for takeout and delivery. And second, it's a great meal, right? In the hot weather. And then people tend to lose their appetite, in the hot weather. But one typical type of cold dish that we have in Japan, it's called Hияsi-Chuka. that uses this type of like sauce that like has like kind of some bit of a citrus and sour flavor to it, which helps people, reduce the like loss of appetite, like or like yeah, so like people want to eat more. And then cold noodles like goes well with the vegetable salads, and so like it's easy to like make a healthy choice. And it can be popular all year round. We have like some noodle restaurants that serve like that dish like I just talked about, like Hияsi-Чука, like all throughout the year. And so like you could serve like this type of a dish like at your restaurant throughout the year. And it's easy to make, right? So you have noodles, and you have toppings that consist of like different types of ingredients. And then most of them are like just served like raw, fresh, like you just have to chop them up. Okay, let's start talking about the noodles that are suitable for cold noodle dishes. So I've been using this chart, right, in previous classes, like to describe different types of noodles, and like basically that was for like different types of ramen noodles. And but like let me explain this chart a little bit. So the horizontal line, it represents like a hydration ratio of the noodles, how much water is like noodles contain. The vertical line, that represents the protein content of the flour that's used to make these types of noodles. And basically lower the hydration ratio, the harder the noodle texture. The higher the protein content, the harder the noodle texture. And you see on the right hand side, it's kind of hard to see, but like it says like noodle size. And from the top, that's 1 millimeter. It's very thin for noodle size. And then down to 5 millimeter, like which is like very thick noodle size. And you notice this the small like green circle like on the top left corner that says like Hakata ramen noodles. That's low in hydration ratio, like high in protein content, so it's hard noodle. And then for the size, it's a 1.1 millimeter, 1.3 millimeter, so that's thin or hard noodle. And then like if you can see the opposite corner, like right bottom corner, like where it says like udon noodles, like blue circle, that's high in hydration ratio, but low in protein content. So it makes this noodle soft noodle. But like for the size, look, 2.2 millimeter, like 5 millimeter, it's very thick and soft noodles. And so it's either like thin and hard, like or thick and soft. And then you could have like any kind of noodle, like somewhere in between these two extremes. So you see this pattern. It's like for the noodle texture to be good, you need to have, well, these pattern. But like if you have like thick and hard noodles, it's just like hard to eat, right? It's not a good combination for noodle texture. So having said that, so noodles are cooked and chilled, right? So like when you chill the noodles, the noodle texture gets hardened. So basically the cold noodles is hard, harder than the if they're used for hot soup noodles, after they're just cooked, right? So you need to be like kind of take it into account to have like a good texture. So kind of thinking about like kind of how soft the like natural texture should be. So you need to control the like protein content, hydration ratio, and then you need to like consider like size, noodle size. So it should be like smaller than the usual, like what you would have like for hot soup noodles. Yeah. Okay. And of course, like we talked about, we have to like talk about like differences between ramen noodles and udon noodles. Of course, like some of you know the difference, but for those of you who don't know, and ramen ingredients wise, like we already talked about like in the previous classes, but like wheat flour, water, kanshi, these three things are like essential, and size tends to be small. Thickness and width, and texture tends to be hard. And udon noodles ingredients with flour, water, salt. So instead of kansi, use salt, sort of to condition the dough. Then as an option, like we use vinegar too. The size-wise, like it tends to be big. The texture tends to be soft. Then start talking about these ingredients in details. So that for the protein, the wheat flour. For the protein, we talked about like higher, the harder the noodle texture. So for udon noodles, like we usually use flour with like protein content like between like 7 and 9%. But like for ramen noodles, like for typical types of ramen noodles, the harder texture, that's between like 10 and like 13%. And so, and then the ash content is like how much minerals is contained in the flour, right? And then that affects the color and the wheat flavor with the noodles. So the higher the ash, the darker the color, the stronger the wheat flavor. Then viscosity value, right? Viscosity value is like what determines the elasticity, how elastic the noodle becomes. So basically, the higher the better. But like this value is not shown in the product label, so you have to like actually test it on the device. We actually have at our headquarters. So if you have a sample, then you can send it to us and we can test it for you. Okay. Water is also important. Kind of water we use is soft water. So soft and hard, right? So hard water means there's a lot of minerals that will contain in the water. Minerals being calcium and magnesium. And what the problem is that like when we cook noodles, the noodles, the ingredients contained in the noodles like kansi, salt, and other things is released to the cooking water. In exchange, the noodle gets like water from cooking water, and then the noodle gets cooked. But like when we cook the noodles like hot water, there's because there are a lot of like magnesium and calcium already in it, so there's less room for these ingredients to be released to. So it takes time to cook them. When we cook the noodles for a long time, then the noodles, some of the noodles melts into cooking water. So the yield of cooked noodles is not good when we use hot water to cook noodles. So for the reason like we should use soft water for cooking noodle, like for cooking broth even. Okay, so soft water. And for ramen noodles, the ingredients like kansi is like unique ingredient you have to have like for ramen noodles. That conditions like dough, flour to be kind of dough like you need to have like for ramen noodles. And there are many variations we can see out there, but like the basic ones we use are a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. Potassium carbonate hardens the noodle texture and changes the color of the texture noodles to yellowy color. And it has a stronger kansi smell. And sodium carbonate does the exactly opposite. And we change the ratio of this the blending ratio. The potassium carbonate, because it makes it harder, we use more of the potassium carbonate to make the noodle texture harder. When we make thin noodle, when we make a thick noodle, we use more of the sodium carbonate to make them softer. So we need to adjust the ratio. And for udon noodles, instead of kansi, we use a lot of salt. The salt is used to make dough more elastic by like tightening the gluten in flour, and it reduces the activity of like enzymes contained in flour. It inhibits the growth of like unwanted bacteria, and then improves the noodle flavor, like wheat flavor, adds salty taste, and it prevents cracks like when like the noodles get dry. So there are many benefits, like when we use like salt, but like we use a lot of salt, as you can see later. And sometimes we use vinegar for udon noodles. What it does is like optimizes the resting process, keeps dough from spoiling, and it controls the pH level of the cooking water. Just briefly explain this graph here. Is that like when we cook the udon noodles using like the cooking water that's neutral, then we lost a lot of noodles like in cooking water by they just melted into cooking water. But like when we cook the same noodles like in cooking water that's like light acid or light alkaline, then the amount like the noodles we lost in cooking was like a lot less. So we should use, because we use like vinegar, and then some of the vinegar like melts into the cooking water, making it a light alkaline. So that vinegar works that way too. Okay, so start talking about production process of like first like ramen noodles. Okay, so weighing the ingredients is very important. So we go by weight. Like when we weigh like ingredients, we don't use like such measuring it as like the volume or anything. We go by weight, like grams, like pound, and then we need to like precise like when measuring it, because otherwise you don't have like consistent the same thing over and over. The mixing process, and so like we mix this solid ingredients and liquid ingredients, and then the flour like kind of grain like come together to form like crumbles of like dough when mixed in the liquid, and then just gradually gets bigger and bigger, and in the process it develops the gluten structure that's shown in the image. So we're trying to like develop strong gluten structure, and then like trying to have like good hydration of dough, and the resting process, rough forming, like combining, resting, second resting. So basically this slide like explains how we make dough. And the second slide, it just thin it and cutting, portion it, and then rest it. Rest it like we make them into noodles and like put it in the fridge, and then store them for like a couple of days to rest it. And cook them, right? And what's important, like when making like cold noodles, is that like this last process, like we wash them to remove the starch of the noodles, and then we chill them. You need to chill them, like probably using cold water or like kind of ice cubes. Okay, so production process for udon noodles a bit different from ramen noodles. So like for weighing, and then like mixing process. So this is a high hydration noodle, like that's udon noodles, like around like 50% or so. So it's a wet noodle. So like basically the less water we use, the longer we have to mix. Like in case of like ramen noodles, or like higher, like in case of like udon noodles, like that's 50%, like 55%. The mixing time is just 5 minutes. The more water we work with, like the shorter we have to mix. For the resting process, so you basically put the dough, the plastic bag, and then put it in what we call like resting cabinet, and then we set the temperature to 28 degrees Celsius, and then let it sit for like 2 hours. And after that, we take it out and then press it, and then put it in the resting cabinet again for overnight at 18 degrees Celsius. So the pictures, this dough, like you see in the picture, like are after they're going through the second resting process. Okay, so and then we thin it and cut it and cook them. And again, like so, we wash them. We wash off the starch of the noodle surface, and then we chill them to make it cold. All right, so that's the kind of lecture part I had, and then let's start making noodles, because we expect to spend more time like in this making noodle section. So I went kind of fast, but like if you guys have some questions, please send them in the comments. So first, like we start with the ramen cold noodles, and so this is a Richmond one machine. It's only one model,
and it has a mixer that can take up to like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients. And she's putting just 4 kilograms of solid, because the minimum batch of this mixer is just 4 kilograms. And then, we want to do, because like we want to kind of break the kind of dough, the like chunks of like flour like in smaller pieces, and like kind of add like just kind of air to the flour particles. So like we mix it just with the ingredients for 1 minute, and then she's in the meantime, like she's so dissolving the salt and the water, salt and the kansi into the water. So after a minute, she wants to set it to 4 minutes first. Then just add maybe 2/3 of the water first, like into the flour. And as you can see, the water kind of drip through these holes, like small holes, like in the mixer lid. Then the liquid is added like little by little to the flour. We don't want to add like all the water like at once, because that's gonna just wet the big part of like flour, and then like it's not gonna generate like good hydration of flour. So and then but we can't wait for 4 minutes or 10 minutes for this mixture to be done. So like we will start the next process. So you see, like that's how the resting process is done. So after mixing, right, so we put the dough into the plastic bag and then seal it well to keep them from drying. And then like we are gonna feed it. You're going to feed it to the rollers. So this machine has like one set of rollers, and you can adjust the roller clearance between these two rollers. And then we're feeding this dough to make the sheet of dough first. So we call this process like rough forming. And the initial roller clearance that we're gonna set it to like is 1.5 millimeter. Remember this, like the initial roller gap, like just from 1 millimeter, and then like we set the roller speed to 4 in this machine. It's a slow speed. So the end of the machine, like dough comes out, and then she's winding it into rolling pin, and that's put against the roller that's now rotating, and it basically like automatically winds up the rest of the dough by itself. So when she opened the gate, the machine stops like this for safety features. You don't want your hand to be caught in the rollers, and it's gonna be very, very painful. So she's feeding it, and then all the while, like we want to like go slow in this process because we want to apply the very strong pressure to first like make a sheet of dough. Okay, so we did 4 minutes and add the rest of the water and mix for another 6 minutes. So the total mixing time is 10 minutes. So after combining, I mean after like rough forming, the dough that came out, like as you may be able to see, the dough is like still the fragile, like still pretty rough, right? So if you pinch it, like you maybe will like tear it apart like pretty easily, rip it like pretty easily. So we want to make it stronger. We want to make it more firm. How we do that is that we're gonna separate this into like 2 separate sheets of dough, and then combine them through the rollers. And the roller gap we set at this time is 2.0, because like that was like 1.5 millimeter before, and now we are combining 2 separate sheets, and then each sheet is 1.5 millimeter in thickness, right? So that's 1.5 times plus 1.5. So that's like 3 millimeter equivalent of dough is like going through the roller gap. And but we want to gradually thin the dough to prevent the gluten structure from like getting damaged. So we set the roller gap to 2 millimeter, and then in calculation we use this formula called like 70% rule. So we basically like apply the 70% to the current the dough thickness to the roller gap. So that was 3, and so like 3 times 0.7, 2.1, and then we want to round it down to 2.0. So that's why we set that roller gap to 2.0. And she's just folding it to like making sure that like it's it's even. So it's maybe like hard for you guys to see, but like the dough that's coming out, looks like it's very smoother, and then it's more firmer than before. Okay, so that's what we call like first combining process, and then usually we do this process like 1 time or 2 times depending on the kind of noodle we are making. Like for this one, we're doing it twice, and so we're combining them, right? So like again, like we separate it into 2 sheets, and that was 2 millimeter in thickness, and so like 2 plus 2, 4, 4 times 70%, 2.8. Like just for simplicity, right? We want to round it up to 3.0. So now the dough is supposed to be 3.0 in thickness, millimeter in thickness. And from this point on, we want to start dusting the dough because we wouldn't want it to stick together. So we have this automatic duster. Okay, so after like chicken combined process, so the gluten structure inside dough is complete at this point. So all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness before we cut it, the noodles. And so that was 3 millimeter, so 3 times 0.7, 2.1, but like we want to run it down to 2.0. And from this point on, we like to go faster. So we're speeding up the rolling. So now that's 2.0 millimeter, and next, well, that's 70%. So like 2 times 0.7, that's 1.4. But like very simple. Let's set the roll gap to 1.5. So the dough is like getting really thinner, definitely thinner, and I think it's time for us to cut it. But we have to say that like the dough itself, the actual thickness is always bigger than the roller gap we set, because the dough it bounces back after it's gone through the roller gap. So even though we set the roller gap like 1.5 millimeter, it's definitely bigger because it's yes, because it bounces back. So let's see. So we have to measure it to be precise, right? In noodle size, we have to measure it. And then like that's 2.1-ish, 2.0, 2.1-ish. So the difference between the roller gap we set and then the actual thickness is 0.5, 0.6, and we have to see what the final thickness should be, right? And then because we are aiming at the final thickness to be 1.6, 1.5. So yeah, so we set the roller gap to 0.9, so that we expect that like actual thickness to bounce back by like 1.5, 1.6. So it's gonna be like 1.5. So we'll set that. This is the kind of cutter we use, like this, we call it slitter cutter, and it works like kind of like paper shredder, and so that this cutter, each groove determines the width of the noodle, and the thickness of the noodle is determined by the roller gap. So again, we're feeding the dough to the rollers, and the dough is getting inserted into the karawiso, right? And then comes out. And then you can adjust the like length of the noodles, making it shorter and make it longer. And then if you make it longer, then that changes your serving size to be bigger. And if you make it shorter, makes your serving size to be smaller. I think for like cold noodles, like kind of noodle like we are talking about, like that's used for the Hияsi-Чука dish, I think the typical serving size would be like 120 to like maybe 140 grams. So you just have to adjust the length to get to that serving size that you want. Right, so yeah, so this is how ramen noodles are made from scratch. And so next up, that's udon. Okay, that's great. So let's start the udon noodle. Okay, so this is a machine we have like designed to do udon noodles. It's called Shinuchi, and it's an all-in machine too, all-in-one machine, and it has a mixer, a 12.5 kilograms mixer. So you can mix it up to like 12.5 kilograms of solid, and on top of that you're adding like liquid. And so it's very similar in like construction of the mixer, like we saw in the ramen machine. And so we set the timer, right? Again, like just for 1 minute. For that reason I discussed, right? And you see this, she's now dissolving this salt. See like how much salt she's putting it in to the water. So the amount of like salt like she put in the water, right? So she's making basically the salt water that's about like 12% to like 15% salinity level. Salt water, so like that's really salty, or like it's way saltier than like seawater. And this is the vinegar. Vinegar is like just a bit, like maybe like 1% of the weight of flour, just a little bit. But don't worry, like so when you cook the noodles, most of the salt dissolves in the cooking water. So we set the timer to like 4 minutes first, and then add the this salt water, just a tooth out of it first. And total mixing time for udon noodles is just 5 minutes. So we talked about, you know, the higher the hydration ratio, the shorter the mixing time. For that, the batch that we just did, like on the ramen machine, the total mixing time was just like 10 minutes. And the hydration ratio of that batch is about like 35%, 36%. So we call it like medium hydration ratio noodle. High hydration ratio noodle like udon noodles
because we work with like a lot of water, so we shouldn't mix it too long. So while we are mixing it, let's do the next process. It's a pressing. So this is a dough that we mix and then put it in a resting cabinet for 2 hours at 28 degrees Celsius. And now we want to press it. We want to press it using this press machine. And in Japan, actually, some of the udon shops, or in old days, restaurants, noodle shops, press the dough after mixing by actually stepping on it, by foot, stepping on it. Well, it doesn't look good, but like that's how they did it. But of course, like they had like some like protection sheets and stuff like that over the dough. But like, but like in udon shops in Kagawa, actually, like some of the udon shops actually press it that way. So, well, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a very intensive job to like press dough by heat. So it's a lot easier to do it by machine. So the first press, right? And then you want to fold it. You want to fold the edges like inwards, and then press it again. It's a lot of force actually that's being applied to the dough. It's almost like 10 tons of like pressure that's being applied to the dough. That's why when you are like pressing them, like foot stepping on them, the dough, you have to do it like for quite a while actually. So making it, that's why like it's very labor intensive. So third time, so do you notice that like the dough is like getting smoother and smoother? I mean, it looks like it's getting smoother and smoother, like on the surface. And because like we are folding it every time we're pressing, inside the dough, when you cut it with a knife, you see the layers of the dough being formed. So it's that's how like the gluten structure is being developed. And so after 4 minutes, right, we should like kind of clean the inside of the mixer to sort of like take off some of the dough like that's been stuck on the blades and like on the walls. And then add the rest with water and mix for like another minute, 1 minute. Okay. For the pressing with dough, this is the 4th time. So you see like the dough is like getting really firm and smooth. So it's getting like really springy actually. It's very springy.
So it goes up and then presses at the top of the press machine. So it's very smooth. Like after fourth time, like it's very smooth, right? So after pressing, we want to divide it in like small pieces and put them in a pressing cabinet. This is like the size of the pieces like should be like small enough for yeah, well you see like in a minute, but like small enough for you to be able to like thin it, sheet it out next day. Yeah, so we gonna put this piece back into a plastic bag and put them back in the pressing cabinet. So basically like first day you're making dough, and next day you're sheeting it out and then cutting it, portioning it, and cooking. So it takes 2 days to make authentic udon noodles. And so she prepared the dough yesterday. So she's taking it out and then put it in the pressing cabinet. Make sure that it's sealed to keep them from drying. And then we set the temperature to like 18 degrees Celsius, and we let it sit for overnight, which is about like 15 hours, 16 hours. Okay, so we can't wait tomorrow till the dough is like well rested. So she has the dough like that she made yesterday, but it's too thick to go through the roller. So using the press machine, we want to like flatten it first. So udon dough is like very, very soft. I mean, compared to like ramen dough, and like very wet. So that's the reason why like it's hard to like make this type of noodle on the ramen machine. And so she is going to sheet it using the roller, and this machine has like rollers that are like smaller than the rollers that are equipped in ramen noodle machine. And so she's gonna start roller, and then like notice there's a lever right on the right hand side, and then we start from like 1, it's like widest roller gap, and then goes up to 2, which narrows the roller gap a little bit. And then went to the 3rd gear, which further narrows the roller gap, right? So we gradually thin it. So if you just thin it like drastically,
they like just destroy, I mean, damage the like gluten structure that we developed in the inside dough. So we don't do that, right? So, and then you might notice the way she's inserting the dough into the roller. So she's changing the direction, like the dough is going into the roller, like sheeted. So instead of like, I mean, unlike how dough is like being thin rolled on the ramen machine, so on ramen machine just one direction, right? Just one direction. So like dough is like being rolled, like sheeted like in one direction. But like this machine, like you can roll thin in multiple directions. So that the structure of dough is like actually stronger, like the multiple directions. Like if you pull it in different directions, the dough doesn't rip. It just stretches out. But like if you pull the ramen noodle dough in certain directions, it rips easily. That's because the dough, like on the ramen noodle machine, like is just being rolled like in one direction. And do you see this number here? That's actually the thickness of the that displays the thickness of the udon dough that's being rolled. So there's a sensor. Right? That's hitting the dough, like as the dough goes through the rollers. So this sensor measures the red light sensor, like measures the thickness of dough. Okay, so we thin the dough to certain thickness, and we're cutting it. So we doubled it, and then so the two sheets of dough, the thickness, total thickness is like 6.2 millimeter. So one sheet is supposed to be like 3.2 millimeter in thickness. So that's a good thickness for type of udon noodle we call like sanuki udon noodle, which is typically like relatively thick udon noodles in Japan. Right, so we need to dust a lot of flour because unlike the noodles we did, like on ramen noodles, like this dough is like very, very wet. So we are dusting a lot. And then when I'm going to cutting. So the cutting, this machine has we call like four channels like channels width. So we set the cutter. So instead of like adjusting the rolling speed on the ramen machine to adjust the cut width, this machine just the speed of the conveyor belt that goes into the cutter cutting. So by changing the channel, like that's preset to the dial over there, you can actually change the width of the noodle. So you have four channels on this machine. So you could have like four different types of cut width preset. And the noodles are like dropped onto this tray, and then if you just slide it out, and you have the noodles. So on purpose, like she cut the sheet of dough like into like different width using this width channel. So she just like switched them around to cut them like into like different width. Okay, so that's how we make like udon noodles in this machine. Okay, so before we go to the kitchen, right, let me show you some of the noodles like Megumi made the day before. So these types of noodles, like kind of almost like handmade kind of style noodles, that we can use like for the cold noodle dish. And then do you notice this like kind of green thing like kind of kneaded onto the noodles? So these are like shiso leaves that we didn't knead them into the noodles, but like we actually, remember like combining process? When we did that process, like we actually put the actual leaves onto the combining process, into the sheets of dough. So this is like udon noodles, like that's like has like seaweed kneaded in them. It's very good for cold noodles. All right, so before we go into the kitchen, to Mr. Ikeda, we need to like take a bit of break, like just for maybe like 1 minute. Okay, so we're ready. Let's move to the room, like kitchen, where we conduct the ramen school and udon school in Kagawa. Okay, so here we are. So this is our kitchen, right? So in our kitchen, so we basically conduct our cooking part of like ramen school, like udon school here in Kagawa, and then we have exactly the same facility in Tokyo, and we also have a school in Singapore, right? And then we have like 8 tables, each equipped with induction cookers, and over there we have like big induction cookers like that. Each of them cooks a different types of broth in ramen school. Each part will be like cooking different ingredients individually, so each students can get to taste like how each broth like tastes, right? And then so later like they can combine them to reach their ideal like sort of like recipes. So this school is like one-to-one like sort of like a session. So here we are like with Mr. Ikeda, like our chief instructor at this school. So he's doing this class basically like in the cooking part, and then I'm gonna be translating. And then like he has like depth of knowledge, and then long experience like teaching like Chinese cuisine. Like so he has like big experience like in Chinese cuisine, which is like very similar, really related to like ramen. We have Mr. Sun. He's been with us like a few months, but like he has a good potential to be like a great teacher. Then he speaks Chinese, Japanese. So like for those of you who want to speak Chinese, you can please contact me to ask questions. All right, so let's get into the cooking part. So Okay, so today like we're gonna do like just 2 menu items today. Okay, so the first one we're gonna do like udon, right? And then hiyashi, that's cold udon, and then another one like called like bukake. That's kind of special type of like a cold dish for udon we have.
もう一つがですね、冷やし中華と言われるものです。冷たく冷やした麺に甘酢ですね、ちょっと甘酸っぱいソースをかけて食べるメニューとなります。
So another dish like ramen, and it's called like Hияsi-Chuka. It's like cold noodle, and but like basically with kind of sweet sauce. That's a bit sour too.
じゃあまずうどんの方から、仕込んでいきます。
Okay, so let's start doing like udon.
先ほど言ったのですね、こちら今ご用意していただいてます。
Okay, so these are noodle like we prepare, right? For udon.
こちらはまあ今から茹でていくんですけども、うどんにはですね、塩をたくさん使ってますので、麺の約10倍ですね、以上のお湯がないと、どうしても中まできれいに浸透しなくて仕上がらないので、少し多めのお湯を用意して入れていきます。
So udon has like a lot of salt, right? So we need to use a lot of water, cooking water. We usually prepare like 10 times the weight of the udon noodles weight, the cooking water. Otherwise, the cooking water wouldn't like penetrate like well enough into the noodles. So it's gonna be they'll be like salty noodles. So we need to have like at least 10 times the weight of the noodles for the cooking water. And you have to just entangle the noodles as we like pour them into the water.
そのまま取るとですね、きれいに対流しなくて、きれいに麺が上がらないので、こちらの棒ですね、棒を使って混ぜていきます。
So if you just let them swim like that and like they wouldn't like kind of swell well. So you need to like kind of stir it using that kind of stick. So it's almost like a it's almost like a yeah, it's almost like a drawing like infinity sign or something like with a stick. While like when you like stir it, and when like noodles are kind of like start to like flow up in the water, then you can let them go.
でうどんが浮き上がってきて対流してきたら、少し火を弱めます。
So when it like noodles like starts like swelling into the cooking water, you can lower the cooking water temperature.
強火で対流させると表面がぶつかり合って、表面が溶けてしまうんですね。表面が荒れてしまうので、ある程度沸いたところで火加減を落として、自然と対流する程度の加熱に落とします。
So if you keep it like rolling, boiling, then the noodles themselves like kind of hit each other, and then the noodle surface like gets melted into the boiling water, like boiling water. So like you want to like turn down the heat after like they reach the noodles like start swelling.
2、3分ですね、中で少し対流した後に、こちらのパンもですね、こちらにとって横にかけておきます。
So after letting them like kind of swell like a little bit like for a few minutes, we're gonna catch them in, like in the net, this kind of net, and then let them cook in the water.
うどんはラーメンと違って1食ずつ茹でるのではなくて、まとめて大量にですね茹でたものを1食分ずつに取り分けるということが多いので、ここに今1回と入れた分だけでは次の分が入らないので、こう多分に取ってということで、また次の麺が空いているところに入れられるということですね。
Yeah, so like unlike cooking of like ramen noodles, which cook like individual portion, udon noodles are cooked in batch. So you can like catch like the batch of noodles like in this kind of net, and then like you can start like cooking like another batch. Okay, so we can't wait forever for the udon noodles to be done. So let's start cooking the ramen, like Hияsi-Chuka noodles. So this is like the curly noodles that we have.
日本でもさまざまな太さ、あとストレートの麺とかを使うことが多いんですけども、麺はお好みのもので大丈夫です。
Even this type of like cold noodle dish, like we call Hияsi-Chuka, we use different types of noodle, like different sizes, different like even like curly or straight. But like normal, like typically like this type of noodles use like curly and then this size. Okay, let's start cooking. And like kind of spread them around. Then
go into the cooker. And cooking time is about like 3 minutes.
通常のラーメンと違いまして、茹で上がった後に、水で洗って締めますので、それ以上火が通らなくなるので、通常のラーメンよりは長めにしっかりめに茹でます。
So after we cook them, we're gonna chill them, and after we chill the noodles are not gonna cook from that point on. So we cook this type of noodle like kind of longer than usual.
今回の太さであれば、普通のラーメンとして使うのであれば、2分程度で大丈夫なんですけども、冷やして使うのは3分ですね、1分ほど長く茹でていきます。
So for this type of for this size of noodles, maybe like cooking time is like around like 2 minutes. But we're talking about cold noodles here, so we set the cooking time to like 3 minutes.
今回はですね、具材です。
Okay, so the topping ingredients that we're going to use.
トッピングは何でも大丈夫です。お好みのものを乗せていただければ結構です。
So for these kind of toppings, it could be anything, but anything that you prefer to use.
日本でよく使われるのは焼き豚とか、あとは卵、薄焼き卵ですね。とかあときゅうりを細切りにしたものがよく乗せられます。
So like the ingredients like typically used like in Japan are the grilled pork, like slice of grilled pork, and then like a thinly cooked, thinly like grilled like egg, and then the just kind of shredded like cucumbers, but that's like really thinly sliced cucumbers.
あれですね、ソースの方はこちらです。これは醤油とベースに砂糖ですねを入れて、あと酢が入っています。甘酢です。
So the tare that we have like with this type of noodle, like that's like with soy sauce and sugar, and a bit of like vinegar, but it's like sweet vinegar in it.
濃いめの味なので、少量をかけて、そちらを混ぜて召し上がっていただくような形になります。
So, but like the taste itself, like it's kind of actually stronger side. So we just like add a little bit of it, and the noodles are done. So, so as we talked about, we need to wash them first. So to wash it, we are washing the starch off the noodles. Kind of like slimy, sort of kind of substance that are on the noodle surface. Okay. And after that, we are putting in ice water and kind of tightening the noodle texture. And after kind of chilling them like ice water, we need to kind of strain the water out very well. And if you just shake it, it doesn't we can't really shake off the water. So you need to kind of press that to squeeze the water out. So after we squeeze the water out, when I plate it, and then sauce, and then just pour the sauce and stir it, and then eat it. So that's how Hияsi-Chuka dish is done. Okay, and So the kind of ingredients we're going to use for udon dishes.
こちらが冷たいぶっかけうどんのトッピングになります。
So these are toppings for like cold noodles, like bukkake cold noodles.
シンプルなぶっかけうどんですと、この大根おろし、あと生姜
The
ですね。
simple bukkake cold noodles like so straight with ginger, daikon,
あとはネギ
the
の、
radish,
小口切りなどを乗せて召し上がることが多いです。
we chopped up scallions.
今回ですね、エビの天ぷらと、あと餅を素揚げしたものを、ちょっとトッピングとして使っていきたいと思います。
And then he's thinking of like using like the deep fried prawns and then the rice cake as toppings.
うどんの方がそろそろ茹で上がりますので。
Okay, so it's about time for the udon noodles to be done.
うどんの方はですね、茹で上がりましたら、こちらですね、シンクに水を2個かけてるんですけども、片方のシンクでまずしっかり洗って、ぬめりと、あと塩をたくさん使ってますので、その塩分をしっかり落とします。
So we have like two sinks. One of them like so the first sink we want like move the noodles over in, and then we want to like wash them well to remove the starch off noodles, and then because we use a lot of salt in the udon, we want to make sure that like most of the salt is gone in the washing. Okay.
では、茹で上がったものを洗っていきます。
Okay, so we're gonna start washing the udon noodles.
水を差しながら、しっかり表面を洗っていきます。
So by running the water through it, we need to like make sure like we like this feel like a lot of strength actually like when you're washing them by hand.
しっかり表面のぬめり取れたところで、隣のシンクで締めていきます。
So when you have like all these like a starch like of the noodles, move into the next sink where you're gonna chill them to tighten the noodles.
しっかり締まった面ですね。こちらを一玉2食分ですね、玉取りをしていきます。
And after make sure like these like noodles are very very well chilled, you're going to like portion it.
またですね、取ったものを
You're portioning it, and so that's how it's different like from between like ramen and udon. Like ramen noodles, like you portion them out like when you're making the noodles, but like udon noodles, you portion when after you cook them in a batch.
こういう形で取ったものを、ポイントと温め直したり、もしくはここで少しずつ締めたものを器によって提供していきます。
So after like we portion them out, we're gonna use them as like maybe like hot soup noodles, and then in that case like we're gonna warm it using that noodle cooker, or if you're using it for like cold dish, like we're gonna chill them again in the sink and plate it.
では一つですね、お皿に取っていきます。
So that's how you like plate the kind of cold udon noodles.
下に乗せるトッピングを今からエビですね、揚げていきます。
Okay, so I'm gonna fry some of the toppings that we're gonna put on the noodles.
では、餅とエビの方ですね、揚げていくんですけども、餅はそのまま素揚げで揚げていきます。
For the rice cake, like we're not gonna put like any butter.
でエビはですね、天ぷらの衣をつけて揚げるんですけども、そのまま衣をつけて揚がると表面に衣がしっかりつかないので、先に縁とですね、粉を表面にまぶして、そちらを衣につけて揚げていきます。
So for the prawns, we need to put them in like flour first before we put in butter. Otherwise, the butter like would fall apart like in the oil.
このような形で準備しておきます。で 油の温度はですね、大体180度ですね。
The temperature of the oil is about like 180 degrees Celsius.
衣を落とした時にですね、真ん中ぐらいですね、まで沈んで上がってくるぐらいが適正な温度です。
So when you drop like the bit of butter like in the center of the oil pot, then it's like it just floats up like quickly. Then it's the right temperature.
上げていきます。
Okay, let's start frying.
餅はですね、そのまま。
So cake rice cake like just when I fry them, deep fry them by themselves.
エビの方はですね、衣をしっかりつけまして。
Prawns.
餅の方はですね、表面が固まって少しこうプクッと、割れるぐらいですね。こうなるぐらいだったらもう大体火が通ってます。
So for the rice cake, like just kind of expands and then see some like a bit of cracks in them. Then it's done.
時間にして1分程度ですね。
Yeah. So like kind of the cooking time, like about like 1 minute.
エビの方もですね、火通りはすごく早いです。1分から1分半程度で十分火も入りますので。
So as for the prawns, the cooking time is about like one minute and a half and 2 minutes. Right. So they're done. Okay, so let's play them. Yeah, okay. I think you guys can see now he's plating it. Bean sprouts. So kind of scatter them around the plate. And then nori. Kind of scatter them around as well. And this is a sauce that's like bit different from the sauce like that we use for like Hияsi-Chuka, but like basically like so we are like pouring the sauce over this noodle, and then people just like stir it well and then eat it. Okay, so these are the two the cold dishes that you should get at this time like has suggestions.